prayer is like the easiest thing for us to just never get to. We're so used to like do this thing, see an instant result, and that's just not the way prayer works. A lot of times prayer is something you don't see in the instant. You see it, unfold in time, or maybe sometimes you don't see it, but in either case, like, you're always better for it. It's easy to take it for granted because it's not something concrete that we can physically see, but it is something that's kind of keeping things going in a spiritual sense.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Catholic Founders Podcast, where we discover how to run your business like a saint. 2 asks for you today. If you are not already, please give us a subscribe on YouTube. We are trying to get to 1,000 subscribers so that we can then begin to be monetized. Number 2, if you have not already seen it, we've got a new initiative called the Saintly CEO. This is a free weekly newsletter that will help you learn how to run your business like a saint. Each email will have 2 things. Number 1, a 5-minute read that will help you to insert the faith into how you run your business. That's always going to be under 1,000 words. And number 2, a short list of other Catholic entrepreneurs to help you discover other Catholic founders and the work that they are doing. Again, it's totally free, so go sign up today if you're not already. All right, for today's episode, we are speaking with Chris Lewis, the man behind Baratus Catholic. So many of you are probably already familiar with Baratus, but if you're not, they make Catholic illustrations. And they've worked with people like Harrison Butker, Ascension Press, and our favorite Catholic beer company, Tridentine Brewing. Shout out to Trevor Alcorn from episode 5. And in today's conversation, Chris shares with us why he wants to keep the business as a family business and how he's constantly evaluating what scale that God is calling him to with his company. So, not unchecked ambition, but also not trying to keep it small and being afraid of what it could be. It's a really interesting discussion I think a lot of Catholic entrepreneurs need to go through. We also discuss how to deal with anxiety as a business owner and how he turns to God in those moments and some of the tips that he has for that. And then we discuss, of course, the importance of good art. Art that lifts the soul to God, something extremely important in today's society that's pretty void of beauty in many ways. So there's a lot more than just these 3 topics, but it is a great episode. I really, really enjoyed recording with Chris. Such a knowledgeable person with so many great experiences. So be sure to share this with your friends and let us know your favorite moment from the episode. And without any further delay, enjoy the show. All right. Welcome to the show, Chris. How are you doing?
Good morning. Doing great. Thanks for inviting me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very, very excited to have you. I know about what you're doing, but for people who are not very familiar, tell us a little bit about you and what Baratus Catholic is doing.
Yes, I am basically a lifelong artist, an illustrator, really. I've been drawing since I was a kid, done it my whole life. Went into a career in graphic design for a number of years, 17 years, really. I started freelancing, actually, when I was a teenager. Just started picking up jobs with, like, friends and family members and things like that, just learning how to sell my art and market my work. But then, professionally, I went into graphic design for a number of years, did that. And then after 17 years, I really got this inspiration and the pieces kind of came together to shift gears and switch back out of graphic design, although I still kind of do it, focus more on my true love, which is illustration, and start a Catholic-based illustration business. So now I'm a Catholic illustrator. I've founded my own little Catholic studio, art studio, I call it, and I cater to clients of various degrees. But then I also do like the passion projects, which I sell in my shop, which are like T-shirts, holy cards, devotional goods, and that sort of thing. And that's really the structure, the basic large picture structure of my business.
Yeah, I definitely think we're gonna have to engage you guys on a new graphic design for the podcast because I just used GPT to come up with this thing a while back.
Oh no!
No, I know it's gonna make your hair stand up, but no, I think this is really cool what you're doing. Just for people who aren't familiar, I guess what is the breakdown typically of revenue?
Yeah, it's interesting. So when I first started the company, I was working full time, so I was really getting this company rolling while I was working. So it really started with me doing just things that I love to create. So I was making like holy cards, stickers, started doing some T-shirts, and I was doing that just out of the love of doing it. And having done that is what started to attract clients to me, who were saying like, "Hey, can you do my branding? Can you develop this for me, this product for me, or something like that?" And so that was really, while it was the stuff I was doing for fun that kind of got me out there and visible, it was the client attraction, which actually allowed me to split off and start doing this full time. So really that sustains my business. And now the things that I do in my shop, those are really just the things that I'm passionate about, things I love making, that I've wanted to do my whole life. And so those help kind of supplement the income, but it's really the clients that keep me going and able to support the family and stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. I don't know if you've seen this, but we had Trevor on the podcast
Hmm.
from Trident Teen. So I'm definitely a fan of your work, and I'm wearing it today too, in case people aren't watching. So yeah, this is really cool. I love the idea of people just doing things very well, kind of the Opus Dei type of vibe of like we do things extremely well, and that ends up kind of leading others to be attracted to what we're working on. There's, a lot of secular people will listen to the podcast Founders by David Senra, and it's kind of like, it's obsession. It's something he mentions a lot. These people who end up going on to build great things, they're obsessed with just doing that thing really, really well, and it really brings a lot of people into their orbit. So it's interesting. Do you have any thoughts on that, and like why Catholics specifically should be focused on kind of really, really honing their craft? Because I've come across a lot of people who they kind of just want to punch the clock and be done. Like they don't really. It's either they haven't tried to discover something, or maybe they've buried whatever their interests are just to provide for the family. Like, how do you think about that?
I think it is some of that. I mean, there's definitely been times in my life where I kind of felt burnout, but I've always had this passion to like not only just do the best work I could, just to keep pushing my limits. I mean, it was I should say that the other way around, not just to get the recognition of other people, but to push my limits was really kind of, I've always been at this interior struggle as far as like when I do work, I'm like, am I really doing the best? Can I push that a little bit further? So I'm always trying to make myself take it to another level. And I've just always been like that. And I think since becoming Catholic, I am a convert. So I think since becoming Catholic and just looking at scriptures through a Catholic lens, I really see in Genesis that God gives work to Adam as a form of redemption. So we really redeem ourselves through the work we do. And so it's not something that we should take lightly. It's something we should put our entire effort into. I mean, God gave us this capacity to work, to be creative, to be productive. And it's not something to take lightly, especially as I've gotten older and I've had some health problems, and you start to realize, like, even my eyes, I'm staring at a computer all day and my eyes are starting to go bad. And it's like, man, I should be grateful for the fact that I can actually sit here, look at my screen, focus on the illustration work I'm doing. Like, I need to take that seriously and do the best possible thing I can do. So it's partly, the accolades from people that like see my work and love it or just appreciate it, like that keeps me going because it makes me feel good that I'm doing something meaningful. So I think that you always want to do something good that resonates with people as a business, but just as in my own personal level, like I'm in competition with myself a lot of times,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that helps keep it going too.
Yeah. I mean, being in the situation, right? Like you're specifically working on Catholic art. I'm assuming pretty much almost all the time, right?
Yes.
Um, how do you and people are big fans of your work. I mean, like people who like this really like your stuff. So how do you use that as an opportunity to try to give glory to God?
It's been such a blessing. So many people have really connected with the work I'm doing, and I didn't really see that coming. And if I started my whole business and I started my online presence just to help inspire me, like I was just saying, to help inspire me to keep getting better. I thought, maybe a couple people will come across it, they'll like it, and that'll just kind of give me some momentum and put some steam under me to like keep going. And I didn't really expect how much it was going to connect with people. For me, that's really important because I've heard from people who not only has some of this work like helped them in their own spiritual lives, but like I've heard from people that aren't even Catholic that are like, this made me take a second look at Christianity, and it's helped them come into the church. It's helped people that are in some serious like life struggles in their life, addiction, things like that. It's helped them overcome some of that kind of stuff. And it's like, man, that's really given me a different perspective on like how powerful art is. And it's one of the things that's made me see that like God gave us this capacity for a reason, because it is sort of, when used properly, used well, done beautifully, it can be and help people in their own redemption. So yeah, I don't take it lightly when people appreciate my work. It's a huge thing. It can get hard sometimes when there's a lot coming at you, lots of people coming at you. I know they're hearing it from me for the first time, like, man, I really do appreciate it. But then I feel like I say it so many times that like I can start to take that for granted. So I need to like
Mm-hmm.
stop and say, okay, what am I really grateful for here? Am I really thanking them from my heart? And so like that's something I'm constantly like keeping myself in check about, because I don't want to take this for granted, and I try not to.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I think it's very difficult. Entrepreneurs. I think we didn't talk about your whole journey about starting this, and I know you've talked about this in other podcasts, but um, entrepreneurs oftentimes they have a certain kind of chip on their shoulder, right? And they're just really trying to like kind of prove something. So they want that, right? And we have to recognize that as Catholics, God gave us these skills, and it's for Him, right? These skills are for us to kind of return to benefit Him in this world. So, as you have done this work, like who are some of the coolest like opportunities that you've gotten that you never really expected, like people you've worked with?
Oh man, this is such a blessing because I mean, at this point, I'm 7 years in on this business, and I've touched almost every corner of the Catholic world at this point. I've worked with pretty much all of the big publishers out there, from Ascension Press, Tan Books, Sophia Press, Augustine Institute, Word on Fire. That's been amazing. I've worked in the film industry with people like Mass of the Ages, Coronation Media. I've worked in beer with Tridentine Brewing, which has been one of the latest projects that we've kicked off and has just been a blast. I've worked with professional athletes, Harrison Butker, everybody knows of the Chiefs. I've been able to work with him in the past. I mean, I've really worked. It's been, when I started this, I just thought, it'd be drawing saints and our Lord and our Blessed Mother all day. And it's really been interesting to see how people have taken their Catholic faith and infused it into other parts of their life and these other aspects of the business world. And so that was kind of a bonus because it's like, oh man, there's like no end to the types of projects I can work on,
Mm-hmm.
even with staying within the niche of the Catholic world. It's been a lot of fun. The publication was kind of what my whole life had been kind of oriented to. I really wanted to get into that. But yeah, just being able to do some of these extra things where I'm branding and helping launch products and things like that has been really, really, really interesting. And especially from an angle, because it's a way of evangelizing in these other aspects of the world that, it's not just prayer cards and, on the face religious work.
Yeah. I mean, I think the example of Tridentine Brewing is a great one, right? It's like that beer is not necessarily like you don't have to be Catholic to buy beer, right? Last time I
Yeah.
checked, although we do tend to like beer. But no, I like that because this idea of just inserting our faith everywhere, we should be doing it more because why should we be ashamed to share about it and to be open and talk about it? You said that there's a lot of people who really kind of it resonated with. Was it like this from the very beginning? Like as soon as you started publishing it, did it really kind of start to take off, or was there a particular moment where it's like that overnight success, quote unquote, just suddenly happened?
It really kind of did. I mean, I think I initially started drawing, like I was working in my career, and I would take some breaks every once in a while, and I was already working in a illustration program at the time, and I'd work on a project and I'd get a few minutes to take a break, and I'd kind of like shift my canvas over to the side and just start sketching on the side of my corporate work. And I was like, well, and I was doing this all, by the way, just I had a run in with lung cancer that kind of threw me off, and this is what kind of led me into like reevaluating, like how was I using my life, how was I using my talents. And so I started drawing again as catharsis to kind of work through all that stuff I was dealing with. And so I would be at work and I'd start sketching. I'm like, well, what kind of stuff do I want to work on? And I thought, I'm so grateful for my faith at this point. I was really motivated. So I started drawing the Sacred Heart, started drawing Our Lady. And I came up with maybe like 4 or 5 illustrations. And then I thought, why don't I just start like a social media account and we'll just see what happens? And really, I can't even remember how quick it happened, but it was quick. I mean, some of the really large accounts on social media somehow found me. They started sharing my work, and it really just kind of blew up from there. And within 2 years, I mean, I was essentially working 2 full-time jobs and just like, this is not sustainable. I need to make a decision here because I was doing an injustice to my day job. I was doing injustice to my family. And I had started developing products and things for the business. And I thought, God's made it come this far. I'd be taking a massive risk. I had 5 kids at the time. I now have 6. Actually, I had 4, and I was just about to have our 5th. And I thought, should I just like take a risk and, leave 17 years of all the things that I've accomplished in my career and put that aside and just do this on my own? And ultimately, I thought, if God brought it that far, I was going to just have some faith and take a chance. It's been actually me being able to not split my time and devote full time to Baratus actually helped increase the success of it because I was able to just put that much more time into it. So.
Yeah. I want to back up a little bit. When you were thinking about going full time, like how did your wife react to this, right? How was she supportive of this? Was there like what was the mentality that you finally said, you know what, we're gonna pull the trigger?
Yeah, so I'm a total like melancholic, I'm adverse to taking risks, and that type of thing scares me. She's a total sanguine and was just like ready for the adventure. So like we actually went on a vacation to see her parents in South Florida, and this was during the COVID era, so like I told my boss, like, we're working remotely anyway. Can I just work in South Florida? And he's like, yeah, fine. And so 14 hours driving down there, I was just thinking about this, thinking about the company. I was thinking about my work. And I got down there and I'm like, I don't think I can do this anymore. And I made the decision on that trip to quit. And I pulled her aside and I'm like, I think I'm going to quit. And she's like, do it. So she was all in on it. 14 hours on the way home. She's just on her phone, like planning the business, setting up everything. So she's really, and she took over for me very early on. I was fulfilling all the orders and stuff out of the shop. And she's like, you can't do this, focus on the creative stuff. I'll do this. My daughter eventually turned 16 and she started taking that part over. She's now about to be 19 soon. And she runs my entire fulfillment of my shop at this point. She's our only paid employee. And so both of them were just really excited to get this going and have a family business and do it together. I mean, we really decided to do it together. So she's been like the most encouraging person I could possibly have. I mean, I probably would have been just like paralyzed with fear of doing this if it weren't for her just enthusiastic like support.
No, I appreciate that. My wife was the same. We were expecting our first when I was deciding whether or not we should make the leap. And maybe I don't know if it's harder when you have five or about to have five kids or about to have your first. But
Yeah,
it was definitely scary. But at the same time, there were clear signs, and it's like for me, it was very difficult to ignore those. That God was really clearly saying, "Hey, just
Yeah.
give me a shot here." Talk about the family business. So you and I talked before the pod about how you want to keep this a family business. You're not necessarily trying to turn this into some multinational corporation or something, right? Like
Yeah.
tell us more about why that is, and just generally like some of the aspects that you really appreciate about having a family business specifically.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple dimensions to that. I mean, part of it is just the fact that I guess I'm a little bit unique in even having a business because it's really art driven. So it's like I'm the artist, I'm producing art, and then I'm having patrons support it. So they're really supporting the art and the work that I'm doing. And so I feel sort of a dedication there to keep that personal. When people reach out to me through my shop, I mean, they're asking very personal questions. They like talking to the artist and being connected to the artist. They don't want to talk to like a customer service department. And so like that's one of the things people are like, why don't you hire someone to do the customer service? And I'm like, no, these people are fueling the business. Like they're taking their hard-earned money. They're seeing beauty or value in the work I'm producing. And so I feel like it's really important to keep touch with them and to have that personal connection. And I don't want that to get lost. I don't want to become a Goliath that, it's just, they're talking to a faceless entity, corporate entity. I think you lose a lot of the connection to people that are really, they're patrons more than they're just like, I need this good and I'm going to buy it and you're doing me a favor, I'm doing you a favor. I don't think it's that sort of transaction. I think it's a lot more personal, a lot more spiritual. So that's been important for me. And just as a family business, like I want it to be sustainable. I don't want it to get so big that like we're not doing this as a family. There are some concerns there too with I have to grow the business at a certain extent. So that's kind of one of the things I'm trying to navigate right now is like, how do I do that without losing touch of these things that I'm talking about? That's probably been my biggest challenge, especially in a Catholic environment, Catholic world where, people are very devoted to their particular saints, and saints are a lot of the big thing that I produce, saint illustrations. And so like, what do you do when there's a million saints and everybody wants their patron saint? It's like to some degree I have to grow that business in order to be able to appeal to people who really have personal devotion. So it's a struggle and I'm trying to figure that out right now. But the key for me and the primary focus has been, this is first and foremost a family business for as long as I can do that. And, for as long as I'm drawing. And as my kids are getting older, incorporating them into the business at certain degrees. And it's just, I mean, it's a lovely thing, like as a Catholic and as a family that's already homeschooling and they're seeing the business and how it works and they're being able to be a part of it. It's bigger than just running a business. It's really kind of a family endeavor. And that's been one of the things that fuels it in the first place. So it's something I plan to keep hold of.
Do most of your kids have an interest in working with you, or do you kind of like, hey, you want to help me out here? Like, how does that work? Because this is always a struggle between family businesses, like the father or the leader of the business, and then the kids.
Yeah, it's interesting. So my daughter, my 19-year-old, she's very artistic and she kind of likes being a part of the business. She's very detail oriented, very structured, very focused. She's perfect for fulfilling all of her orders and running the shop. And then I've got my next son in line. He's about to be 17. He's kind of like the hard work and the grit. So like he's moving the boxes around for me when I get new orders. When we do pop-up shops, he's the one that comes with me and helps, load everything up, helps build my set, does that kind of thing. He likes that. He doesn't want to be involved really in like the art part of it. And then I've got other kids that are like, uh, you know, my next son in line, he's just like, he kind of likes to check out some of the things I'm working on, but he doesn't really have an interest in like having a hands-on. And my two daughters below him, like they love it. So they have like I do hang tags on all of our shirts, and like they love to sit here and like put the loops through the tags and like get all that stuff ready so my daughter can use them. So like yeah, they all have interests at different levels. Like they all kind of have their little niches that they are either good at or have a focus on. But yeah, I don't. One of the things is I don't intend to like push my kids into it. And I told this to my son, and I'm like, if you're not interested in being a part of business, like I'm not going to push you. This is my thing. I want it to be a family business. There are still things you can learn from it, and I've helped to kind of pass on that business knowledge to him. He actually. So another thing is me having a business has encouraged my two older teenagers to start their own businesses. So they have
Okay.
their own business as well.
Interesting. So tell me more about that. I guess I'm always curious to see that evolution. Like, what does business end up? What is your business that your kids get to be involved in and see up
Mhm.
close? What have they learned from it? And then obviously you already mentioned some of the outcomes.
Yeah, so my daughter, her being the very artistic one, she has her whole portfolio of her own work that she's working on, which she's learned from me. Okay, how do I produce cards with that? How do I package things? How do I market it? How do I brand it? So she's about to do her first pop-up shop actually this weekend at our parish. So she's seen kind of how we do a live presence, and she's taken some of that in her own way and like spinned it into her own style and done that for her own work. And then my son, he's like I said, he's more of a hands-on guy. He does woodworking and stuff. So like he makes wooden swords for kids, like toy swords. And so he spends a lot of his time like really crafting those. But he's learned from my business, okay, how do I display them when I take them to the parish to sell at events? How do I market them? He's learned to like create a logo and do his branding and things like that. So they're all picking up certain things and then they're learning to apply it to their own interests, which I think is just really neat to see.
Yeah, this leads us into a good segue, which is you obviously by saying, "Hey, listen, we're not trying to take over the entire world with being like the only Catholic illustrator," right? You encourage other people to get started with business, especially with artists. And this is something I've thought about a lot because I've been surrounded by a good number of friends who are artists who they want to be a musician or they want to do these things, but it's like making it into a business is usually not their strong suit. So, what are your kind of core principles or things that you would share with somebody if you're going to start doing this and you want to make this your full-time thing eventually? Here's what you got to keep in mind.
Yeah, I think one of the big things I've seen is there's a lot of people out there that are like, "Oh, I want to do what you're doing." But they haven't really thought about like what is their story? What are they trying to express? And I think for me, especially when I was younger, like I knew I wanted to do something and I wasn't really sure like how I was going to do it or what I wanted to do or what that angle was going to be. And I think for a long time, especially like in my really early years, like in my 20s, I would look at people I admire and I'd be like, "Well, I want to do something like this." And I just found that it was when I didn't have like my own authentic sort of like take on things or whatever that story was that I wanted to convey, it was just an uphill battle. And I kind of felt like I was trying to force it a little bit too much. And as soon as I started relaxing and just trying to think about, okay, what motivates me in the faith and what are the kind of the things that I want to portray and explore through my art. And I started to look more inwards than outwards about what I wanted to do. The whole concept and idea of what I wanted a business to be came together. So I would just say, like, for people starting out a business, like, really think about who you are and what you want to do personally. Like, what is your voice? What is your story going to be? And really work on refining that and crafting that. And then think about all the experiences in your life that can help you take a piece from those experiences and how would you apply that to your business. So for me, like I was kind of frustrated for 17 years working in graphic design in the secular corporate world. I felt like I was just always working on somebody else's things and I was kind of impatient to do my own thing. But, God is very patient. And so when I finally came around to starting my business, it clicked for me like, oh man, that was 17 years of me working in the apparel industry, working in branding, working in product development. And I learned all of these facets of business that now I could take and apply to my own Catholic business. And so don't let those things get by you. Like learn every chance you get. That's what I would tell people, especially when they're young. And yeah, have a story. Don't let any of those experiences pass you by without like, gleaning something from them that can really be useful in your future. And what you were saying earlier is a really important thing too about doing things well. Like understand what that takes. Starting a business, there's going to be a little bit of learning lessons. You're going to learn some hard lessons. You're going to lose money. You're going to have to invest money. Those are all fine things. So just try and put together a plan where you can start to do that in a reasonable way. Like you obviously don't want to tank your whole business before you get off the ground, but a lot of the startup is going to be time, money, exploration, taking chances, experimenting, that sort of thing.
Hmm. The topic of having to kind of go through the desert, if you will,
Hmm.
of a career before you start your business is something I think about a lot. I wanted to be an entrepreneur from a pretty young age. Like my dad was a cabinet maker, so I was like, hey, maybe I'll take over his business. Then I realized, I don't know if I want to do that,
Yeah.
but I know I want to have a business. And it was just a matter of like I was constantly like scratching and clawing and trying to figure something out. But
Yeah.
it wasn't until after some time, like I had a strong skill set that I could easily like provide for my family, and that's why I started my own search firm. So it's like I don't know how to reconcile this because some entrepreneur types will say, are you really an entrepreneur or not? Like, get started, start acting. I'm like, okay, that's one thing, right? But if you are really observant, and if you recognize, like we do, that we have first a vocation to, well, for most of us to marriage,
Mhm.
obviously, unless you're called a religious life, we have to focus on solving that equation first, and then go from there and make sure we can provide. So I appreciate the perspective here. Hey everybody, quick interruption. If you're growing your business and you're looking for a virtual assistant to support you, it could be on marketing items or just general administrative tasks, consider using Paraclete VA. This is something that my executive assistant and I are building, which is basically trying to help Catholic business owners grow their business with trustworthy support that's not going to cost them an arm and a leg. But primarily, we're trying to help these virtual assistants in the Philippines that we know a lot of, these Catholic virtual assistants, to get better employment. In many cases, their employers are either engaged in things that are kind of like immoral or things that are just not in line with their Catholic morals in general, or they're just very disrespected by their employers. So they would much prefer to work for a Catholic who is going to treat them well. They can't just quit their jobs because they have families to feed and they need to bring in money to put on food on the table. So if you're interested in hiring somebody like this, consider reaching out to us with a little bit about what you're looking for, and you will be able to help change a family's life. The way it works is you reach out to us at dearcfpod@gmail.com, tell us slightly about what you're looking for, and then we will introduce you to some folks. Once you hire somebody, you pay $500 to us, and then once you are happy with them after 30 days of work, if everything's going well, you pay us another $500. Again, we are not an employer of record, so you will be paying them directly as a contractor, and we can help you facilitate best practices there, but you will be the one paying them. So again, if this is something of interest to you, consider reaching out. All right, back to the show. What about I want to go back a little bit. You mentioned we were talking about keeping the business smaller and not trying to go let's say to the moon basically. How do you what you're basically doing there is you're putting effectively like a mental limit on what you want to achieve, like how much ambition you want to have, how much effort you want to put into it. How do you decide or discern, maybe is a better word, where to set that limit in relation to what God wants from you? Because we could easily say, I don't want to have to deal with that. I'd like to keep it small, but what if God is asking you to make it bigger? How do you pray about this and like figure out where's the line to focus on?
Yeah, that's something I've actually kind of been grappling with in the last couple years because a couple years ago I was like, this is my limit. I'm absolutely sticking to it, you know. And um, things kind of evolved to the point where it's like, no, I feel like I'm in a good position, and I feel like maybe there's a calling there to kind of expand a little bit more than I previously thought. So I'm constantly reanalyzing that, and that's why I was saying like I'm in that process now, of thinking, okay, how much should I expand? Where should I expand? What's working? What's not? I think part of running a business too is you're constantly doing a self check. You're constantly assessing things. I've been so busy lately that I haven't been doing that as much as I need to. So I'm kind of hoping I get to a period here where I can kind of press the brakes a minute and be like, okay, what's the health of the business right now? Like what's working, what's not, where can I grow? What should I dial back a little bit? And I think it's good for a business person to kind of check in every once in a while, maybe every quarter or something, every half a year. I don't know what that, I think for everybody it's going to be different. I think I should probably do it at least every quarter. And yeah, just reassess things. Is it working not only for the business, but for me spiritually? Like it's very easy running a business to get burnt out, especially if I'm in a creative industry. Like trying to be creative nonstop just doesn't, it's just not possible. I mean, I'm doing business stuff more than I'm being creative at this point. So you definitely, and I don't want to lose sight of that because it was the creativity and it was the inspiration that ultimately got the business started. And it's very easy to get into this routine of just like burning the candle at both ends, keeping the business running, and then getting burned out on the creative stuff, and then you're gonna lose traction there. So I think for me, again, going back to just being an artist, like I'm constantly trying to give myself enough work and enough like pause that I can actually recharge my creativity because ultimately that's what's fueling it. So I feel like as long as I'm being creative and I'm finding outlets for that are meaningful to me. I'm very much a creature of inspiration. So I think if something is really like in my heart, really means a lot to me, I'm just going to follow it. And so to some degree, that's tied to prayer and, just discerning what God's calling me to. So as you were saying, like, how do I know if God wants me to expand or whatever? I think that's part of where the prayer comes in and just constantly being in conversation with God about that.
Yeah, it's very similar to how Jesus would always go up into the mountain, right, and pray and then come down. It's like you have to constantly fill up your cup. Even Jesus did, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Jesus had to take time away to fill up his cup, so to speak. I think we ought to too. And it's not just about the spiritual life too. It's about as I mean, you could argue that the spiritual life and the business life really are basically all one, right? Like our actions are human actions. They're not just, human actions in the context of business or
Yeah.
personal interactions. They're all human and they all have eternal consequences. So I appreciate that perspective because it's so easy as an entrepreneur to just be like, oh man, like I got to get that next client delivered. I got to get their work done. I got to find the next client, right? And there's also at least for me, I don't know how it is for you. There's always a little bit of anxiety of like,
Oh yeah.
okay, where's the next business coming from? And then all of a sudden, like, I actually just closed like 4 retainers out of nowhere, and I'm like, now I'm stressed about delivering on it. So it's like it's constantly
I
back and
feel you.
forth.
Yeah. That's me 100%.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, have you found any tips to try to like deal with that anxiety? Because as my spiritual director says, anxiety is just temporary atheism. So, do you have any particular things that you do to try to deal with any of that anxiety that comes with running a business?
Gosh, I wish I had something good for you here. But this is my biggest struggle and I'm terrible at. Like I said, I'm a melancholic and I'm constantly like prone to like anxiety. I don't know. I mean, there's times where I just have to get away. I have to force myself to like take a break and walk away. And I think it's good for anybody who's running a business to like find some other activity you can do. Like for me, it's getting outside and like doing woodwork or something. And just go and be it. Go and be in like nature or something for a minute. Just have some quiet in your head where you can just start to like reset and think about things. I don't think it's good. I don't think as creatures, again, going back to our Lord, like he always took breaks. There's a reason why we shouldn't work on Sundays. Um, Humans just are not meant to be working nonstop, 24/7, constantly thinking about these things, analyzing things, being anxious. So I think, and I wasn't like that. I did used to work 7 days a week, and we made a conscious effort when I think around the time I started the business that we weren't going to work on Sundays. And there's times where, you have to answer an email or something comes up and you got to address it. But for the most part, I'm like, and my daughter's actually better about it. Like she will not step into this room on Sundays. And that helps too, because that encourages us. It's like, okay, yeah, it's a Sunday. Hopefully the kids see that I'm not, working nonstop on a Sunday, and that's a good reminder for them. I think everybody just needs to be cognizant that we need a break. Sometimes you need a break. And I think the more that I hold myself to doing that and I can get away here and there, I'm not as anxious. A lot of that stuff fades away. I pray about my business at every mass too. So there's time there after mass. I just sit there quietly and I thank God for the business. I thank God for the people who support me. I pray for the success of the business. Ultimately I do this to provide. I do it for two reasons. I love the beauty of the faith, but I also provide for my family. So that is a realization that I do have to work and I have to take that seriously, but I don't do them any justice and I don't do the business any justice when I overwork myself.
Yeah, this idea of taking time away, I think about it so much because This was a commitment I think I started making. Before I had started my business, I had been going to daily mass most of the time, and I try to keep that up. And now I can, go in the middle of the day. And there's always times where like, oh man, I just got so much work to do. Like I'm gonna skip noon mass.
Yeah.
But every time I do, it always calms me down. Like every time I should say, every time I go to mass, it
Yeah.
really calms me down. There's definitely a reason for this. We're constantly relying on ourselves versus on God, right? And I know that people are like, well, you just think that God's gonna run your business for you. Well, in some way, yes, because He gives us all the skill sets. He gives us the inspiration in the first place. So yeah, He is basically
Yeah.
running our business for us, right? Man, this is good. I love all these things you're talking about. This is good. Let me ask you about prayer more. So you mentioned that you guys pray. You pray about your business all the time at mass. Are there any other kind of core ways that you work prayer into how you run the business?
Yeah, I mean, well, there's two ways probably. I mean, just as a family, we pray rosary together every single day. Our intentions are the rosary, the business itself, large scale, but it's also when more personal things come up, if there's particular people who we've interacted with or whatever that we need to keep in prayer, we'll pray for those intentions. But then on the creative side, like I'm praying about the art almost all the time. Like when I'm drawing, I'm like constantly just like, I mean, I consider it a prayer. It's just like kind of like me thinking about the faith, talking to God, like all this stuff, thinking about the subjects that I'm working on. I do think I do it very prayerfully. I at least try to. And a lot of the works that when I start on something new, it generally comes from inspiration or out of a time where I'm sitting there praying and then something hits me. And some of my best work has really come from those moments. So again, it's just a reminder to actually take time to be quiet and pray. Prayer is like probably like the easiest thing for us to just like never get to, because it's not one of those things like we're so used to like do this thing, see an instant result, and that's just not the way prayer works. A lot of times prayer is something you don't see in the instant. You see it unfold in time, or maybe sometimes you don't see it. Maybe it's something that internally changes you. But in either case, like you said about going to daily mass, like you're always better for it. And so having those things, just remembering that like ultimately that's one of those things that's fueling the business. It's easy to take it for granted because it's not something concrete that we can physically see, but it is something that's kind of, keeping things going in a spiritual sense. Yeah, it's important to keep doing that. So we do our daily rosaries. I pray while I'm working. We do little simple things too. We have a lot of problems with the post office. I wouldn't say a lot of problems. We have problems with the post office sometimes. It can feel like a lot when you're sending out a lot of orders, but I'm always very concerned that people, get a good product and to get what they paid for. And a lot of times when you're handing something off to a third party, it's kind of hard to put that trust in someone else to fulfill that end of the bargain. So we'll do prayers for packages as we send them out. We even write a little St. Anthony prayer on the package just as a reminder that ultimately we entrust these things to God to make it work out. There are also times where like the postal service will lose a package, so we'll send another one out or something. And then in the end, 2 weeks later or something, the package shows up and the people end up getting two packages. We're like, look, that's the Holy Spirit right there. Clearly, you must know somebody in your life that probably needs that other holy card or something. So, like, give those things out. So, we're kind of always finding ways that we can just bring back to mind that there's something greater at work here. And a lot of times that comes back to us when we're praying about it and we realize the graces and the gratitude that we have.
Probably the coolest part about being an entrepreneur, I mean, I guess this is not just limited to entrepreneurs who are Catholic, but it's especially important, is that there are so many things that are going on that God's using you for that you don't actually know. And you may never know. Maybe some of them you'll know, but it's just kind of that mysteriousness of like, hey, we're just putting one foot in front of the other, and God sees the big picture. He's guiding us. He's guiding people to us, etc. But just taking a moment to reflect on that, it's pretty epic when you think about it,
Oh, yeah.
And I think we tend to just be so focused on the future and the business and the operations that we oftentimes lose sight of this.
Oh yeah, we think, oh, we're just doing this task, and it's this task that we work on it, we focus on it, we get it done, we move to the next task, and we're just constantly doing tasks. But that's not it. Yeah, like to your point, like it was like when I started my business. I didn't see all of the breadcrumbs that led me to it until I got to a point in my life where I looked around, like, man, I have a business, and I looked back and I saw all the things that fell into place that made that happen. So yeah, God is constantly at work in our lives. It's really our job just to be patient and like you said, constantly be in prayer about it, so we can actually hear what we're being called to do.
Yeah, amen. How do you look at the culture wars and the way your business kind of like helps with it? And I don't mean culture wars in terms of Democrat and Republican. I'm talking about the culture has rejected God broadly, right? And I think that there's some signs that that's coming back a bit right now. But because you're doing this kind of very visible thing that can move people, how do you think about it, and how would you encourage other people as Catholic entrepreneurs to try to like bring God and insert God back into the culture?
Yeah, I mean that's actually one of the reasons I started my company. I used to travel a lot and I'd go to a lot of the major cities in the US and in Europe, and I was constantly seeing degraded art everywhere. And I started thinking about myself as an artist, and I thought, and a lot of times too, you see like sacrilegious stuff and that kind of thing. And I started thinking, there's so much beauty in the Catholic Church. I've heard stories of people that step foot into like one of the great cathedrals of the world and they're like converted by the beauty, and that's real. And I think when I was looking around on these trips and just feeling like the gloom and despair and depression of kind of the world and how it showed itself through the art that people were making, I started thinking, here's a good opportunity for Catholic art to kind of reclaim some space in the culture. And so that's one of the reasons I make things like t-shirts and vinyl decals and things like that, things that people can take out into the world. Just as a reminder, I've had people that aren't even religious like stop me and talk to me or my family or one of us about like the t-shirts we're wearing. They'll be like, "That's such an interesting shirt," or like, I love that say like they know about Saint Michael, but they don't really know like the full scope of it, of the stories and things out of Christianity. So it's like a good way to break the ice and it's a non for people outside of Christianity, it's a non-threatening way to do it. Like you're not hitting somebody over the head with some kind of argumentation for the faith. You're not getting combative. It's beauty speaking directly to their heart. And it prompts them to be the ones to ask the questions. So I think that's, John Paul II, he wrote an amazing encyclical to artists, actually. And that's one of the things that he says, what you just said, is that, the culture's largely fallen away from our Christian roots. And it's the job of the artist to kind of build that bridge back and to bring them back into a reminder of the faith. One of the old councils from, uh, gosh, what was it? I think it was one of the ones from Nicaea. I can't remember, but it was one of the ones that dealt with iconoclasm. They actually called for religious art to be placed everywhere, in our homes, in our churches, but also out on the streets. And I think Rome is a good example of that. When you walk around Rome, you see these little Marian shrines everywhere on street corners. Um, I'm really inspired by that. I want to live in a world like that where, the things that are unseen are made seen by art, and it just recalls our mind to this greater reality, this cloud of witnesses. As St. Paul says, we see through a glass darkly now. On the other side, we're going to see face to face. Things will all make sense. It's one of the jobs of the artist is to put those reminders out uh, in our presence, so that we're recalled to mind of things that are greater than what we just see here. And if we don't do that, the world they're going to be steeped in all of the degradation that we see coming out now in film and in music and everything else. It's the job of the Catholic to kind of like reclaim some of that beauty, because the world's not going to do it.
It's a good point because I think a lot of people, they don't even know what's bad. Like they don't even know
Yep.
how bad the art is because there's not a whole lot of other good stuff out there. I mean, it's out there, but it's not necessarily inserting itself into your life and kind of like saying, "Hey, look at me." It's usually more subtle. It's in our churches. If you're not going to a church, probably not going to see it. I mean, it's obviously in the museums, but I don't know if people are really getting enough exposure to this. Like now there's like a really big popular movement with every city is putting up, murals all the time, right? And what are these murals about? A lot of them are just empty, right? They're like
Hmm.
there's nothingness to it, right? I'm sure the artists, have some idea behind it, but let's be honest, like there's just a lot of just nothingness. And I think people are always seeking beauty, right? We know that they are seeking something because God put his thumbprint on all of our hearts. So all we have to do is just tap into that, right? It already exists there. Maybe they're ignoring it, maybe they're trying to cover it up, but they are looking for truth and for beauty. So we have to keep bringing that to people. I want to ask about your experience collaborating with other people. So you mentioned a lot of really cool names earlier of other Catholics you've worked with. How have you found this experience of collaboration and working with relatively well-known people compared to the secular world? I'm sure you did some of this kind of with the secular world too, with big collaborations, etc. What is the difference there?
Yeah. Yeah. I worked with a lot of pro athletes and things when I was in the secular world. And, I always tried to do the best work I could do. I always tried to really bring a new dimension to the work that I was creating, but it just didn't have the depth or the meaning. And for me, like, especially as I've converted to Catholicism, as I've gotten older, I'm just very much focused on meaning and story. And a lot of the corporate world doesn't have that beyond the framework of make a good, sell a product, just, it's done for the sake of of selling the product, and I think what's different in the world that I occupy now is that I'm doing things because it means something to people. And it's not, it's interesting because it's like nobody, needs the stuff I make, but they desire it because there's a longing in their heart for the things that of God, right? So, um, that's just been a dimension of working in the Catholic world that just, it's not even, you can't even compare it. And it's very unique to the Catholic world because it's something that embodies both the spiritual and the physical aspects of our nature, and it speaks to both of those sides. Whereas when I worked in the secular world, it might have spoken to our material natures to some degree, but there just wasn't that spiritual depth there. And it's just a huge blessing to be able to have a focus, have a business that has a focus on both of those aspects, and just being able to tap into them.
Hmm. No, I like that a lot. What has been the biggest spiritual lesson, or kind of how has your spiritual life developed through entrepreneurship specifically?
Well, I think it goes back to a realization that God has given everybody some kind of talent, some kind of gift, whether you're an artist, musician, whatever everybody has a different facet of their life where they see that God's given them some kind of unique ability. And I think business is, we don't start businesses for the sake of starting businesses. We start businesses because God's given us those gifts, and it's a way for us to utilize them and to be able to share them with others. And I think just realizing that and reanalyzing just why we do these things in the first place and having gratitude for the gifts to do these has just changed my life in such a huge way. I mean, gratitude is probably the biggest thing that's been revelation for me, is just like all these small, just the fact that I can draw. Like, I think I took it for granted. I've just always been like, wow, I'm an artist and it's just kind of what I do. But when I actually stop and think about that, I can take something that nobody's thought about before and I can turn it into a reality through the work of my hands. That's just a huge honor and a gift. And being able to have a business where you can share that with other people and it connects with people in a meaningful way. I mean, it's given me a lot of purpose, I think.
Yeah. I love that. Thanks for sharing that. And then I guess last thing for people, what is something that you would ask other entrepreneurs, any other Catholic entrepreneur, what would be your call to action to them, your kind of call to arms, if you will?
Well, I think yeah, I don't know, just being focused on the faith, why we do these things, and how you infuse the faith into the work that you're doing, whether it's just something that shows itself in your efforts, or whether it's something that manifests itself in the end product that you're making, or the service that you're doing. I think it's important because ultimately God uses this as a light to the world, and that's, we're here to do that work. And I think that every work you're doing, every endeavor, every product you're making as a Catholic should in some way be focused back on God and being able to lead other people to God. I think that's ultimately like the calling there.
Very good. Well, this has been a pleasure having you on, Chris. I've been, like I said, a fan of your work, and I knew that there was a story behind this. So I appreciate you coming on and talking about it. And we'll have to have you on again in the future, and we'll have to see what your kids get up to. Maybe they're going to be coming on the pod too at some point.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I love it. Thank you, Silas. It was great.
Thanks, Chris. God bless. Thanks so much for tuning in to today's episode. If you enjoyed it, leave us 5 stars on your favorite podcast player. And if you're not already, give us a subscribe on YouTube, because we're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers, and that will help us to become monetized. And then be sure to subscribe to the Saintly CEO, our weekly newsletter that in under 1,000 words will help you run your business like a saint, or learn how to run your business like a saint, and help you discover other Catholic entrepreneurs with our curated list of these folks. And finally, if you are looking for a peer group of other Catholic entrepreneurs, consider joining the Catholic Founders Guild. It's $10 a month or $100 a year to be part of this community of other people who are building in this space. We get to know each other, work through each other's problems with our businesses, and learn from each other. Some of these things are, great topics that are not shared on the podcast because people want to keep it more to themselves. But we share this in this kind of more intimate group. You will also get access to all of our paywalled content if you become a paid subscriber. To do this, you just go to our Substack and upgrade to paid. Any of these 3 tiers will work for you. Again, it's $10 a month or $100 a year to join the peer group and get access to all the paywalled content. And yeah, just consider if it's something for you. We really hope to see you in that group. It's got a lot of great folks in it, constantly giving each other advice and helping each other as we go along our business of building journeys. All right, thank you so much for tuning in. God bless you, and see you next time.